All right, can everybody see me? Yes, Lori, can you see me? All right, that means that everybody else can too. Well, hello, good morning, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here for today's Savvy Influencer panel. My name is Doug Stryker, CEO of Savvy Training, and I am located today in lovely-ish Denver, Colorado. Today is May the 4th be with you, 2023, a timely, a very auspicious day for this talk. And this session is being recorded. With that being said, this is meant to be somewhat interactive, and I encourage you to drop your questions and comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to address them either during the panel or after. The main idea and purpose of these Savvy Influencer panels is to bring together industry experts to share their stories and help illuminate the ups and downs of their day-to-day. Today's topic is new technology adoption tips from fellow law firm trainers and IT pros. And with me today, or will be with me shortly, are my good friends and colleagues, Lori Ramirez, Brad Crook, and Dan Lehman. Thank you all for being here. First, we're going to go around the panel and do.
Hang on a sec, Doug. This is Jana Lee. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Brad and Daniel are here. They just haven't turned on their cameras.
Oh, goody. We'll turn them on, guys.
Can you turn on your cameras, guys? Thank you.
And your audio.
I thought it was all on.
There we are, new technology adoption. And he went away. Oh, there he is. Thanks, Dan. As I was saying to everybody here in the Webiverse, with me today are my good friends and colleagues, Lori Ramirez, Brad Crook, and Dan Lehman. Thank you all for being here. First, we're going to go around the panel and do quick introductions, starting with Lori, and then Brad, and then Dan. We'll give you a chance to introduce yourself with who you are, where you work, your official title, and the size of your firm, and then we'll go around and do our experience shares, again, beginning with Lori, and then Brad, and then Dan. Sound good, everybody? Good.
Perfect.
Lori, let's start with you.
Well, hi, everybody. And first, I just want to say thank you to Doug and the Savvy team for inviting me to participate in the panel today. I'm the training and support manager for Porter, Wright, Morris & Arthur. We're located in Columbus, Ohio. I've been in this role for about 14 years. I've been in the IT support world for a little over 25 years. So I've been doing this for a little while. Our firm has 9 locations. Our home office is here in the Columbus, Ohio area, and we have about 170 attorneys and 200-ish staff members, so about 370 total people, and that's a little about me.
Fantastic, thank you. Brad, take it away. Either Brad's frozen or very still. Let's go to Dan, and then we'll go back to him.
Hey, hello, everybody. My name's Dan Lehman. I work for Arnall, Gregory. I am the director of technology for the firm. I've been here for about 5.5 years, and I was in legal consulting prior to this. We are based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We also have an office in DC. We have approximately 180 attorneys and about 170 staff. So right around 350 as a whole.
Thank you, Dan. And I think Brad logged out. He'll log back in a second, but for a second, pretend I'm Brad. My name's Brad Crook. I am the IT director at Moy White LLP, headquartered in Denver, Colorado. I think we have 2 or 3 offices and 130 total people, 60 or 70 total attorneys, and all things related to IT are under Brad's umbrella. And we'll hear about the ups and downs and pros and cons when he logs back in. You can tell him what a good job I did introducing him. All right, well, let's go around a little bit. So each of our panelists is going to have about 10 or so minutes to sort of share. You know, they've all gotten the advanced feeder on our questions, and I've put some thought and work into it. And I'm looking over here at some of these things. But Lori, you've been through quite a lot in the last couple of years. Do you want to start? You want to start sharing where you've been and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me on the panel.
And wait, one second, since Brad's back. Brad, I did a very good job introducing you, and you are amazing at what you do. Why don't you, if you're able to, can you reintroduce yourself? Still frozen. Solar flares and Mercury is in retrograde. All right, Lori, carry on.
All right. Like I said, I've been in IT support for about 25 years. So we have rolled out every kind of tech that you can think of, going all the way back to the days when we were a Word perfect Windows 3.1 office, and we moved everybody to Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook for email, and you know, those big transitions. Fortunately, that was probably the biggest transition we ever had to go through. After that, you know, things have been not nearly as difficult, but still plenty of challenges when you talk about introducing new technology. You know, none of us like that change, and so we like to do things the way we always have. And it does take some skill and some thought when thinking about introducing new tech. And in my experience, I found there's three basic keys to having a successful rollout as well as getting user adoption. You know, and the first thing is, when I look at this technology, you know, we need to make sure that, one, it's useful and that it's necessary. And, you know, sometimes we IT people, we think we know what our end users need and want, and oftentimes we're not right. And so the best way to make sure that the technology is going to be adopted from the by the end user community is to get a group of end users together, a focus group, and have them, the ones that are going to be using the technology, and have them take a look at it, bring them in early on in the demo process. Let them see what it is, what it does, and what it'll do for them, and get them on board. If they say, this is dumb, we don't like it, we move on to the next thing. Drop it, don't force it. They won't use it, so there's no sense in wasting time and energy. If they do like it and say, yes, we want it, the next step and the second key is to get that support from leadership. If you don't have support from somewhere above you, it's not going to fly either. And you know, sometimes, for instance, if it was some kind of technology that we're targeting the attorneys, you know, we'll need to get partner buy-in. You know, maybe even the managing partner or the department heads. We need to have them approve this and want this, and encourage all the other attorneys to use the technology. If it's just for our legal administrative assistants, we'll probably just get HR's support and approval. And regardless of which way we go, when I go to leadership to get that support, I need to make sure I have all my facts and research in hand, because they're going to grill me. They're going to ask me all the, you know, pertinent questions, and I better have answers. You know, oftentimes I feel like I'm a salesperson. You know, I sell it to the focus group, then I sell it to leadership, and then I go out and sell it to the rest of the end user community. The third key is preparing the right kind of training. I've learned over the years, most attorneys do not want to come to my training room and sit down and log in and have hands-on training. They want to be in their comfort zone. They want me to come to them. They want a presentation, and it better be short because for these attorneys, time is money. And so they're not going to sit through a 2 or 3 hour hands-on training class to learn some kind of technology. So those are always very important. Some of the things that we also do with training is we try to, you know, offer some pre-learning. If it's just getting some documentation out there, you know, we don't do any kind of big advertising of new technology, mainly because, I don't know about you all, but we're ready to roll out the technology today, and 3 months later, we finally roll it out. So we don't want to do this big, advertising, here's this, here's your new, desktop. And then there's delays. It seems like there's always delays. So we do kind of wait till we're right about ready to roll that out. We do use the LMS. We hope to use the LMS for our new desktop rollout and get some pre-learning out there. We didn't really introduce an LMS probably maybe 5 to 7 years ago. We started using that, and that does make it so much easier to get our pre-learning out there. After you do all of this, at the end of the day, they go back to their desks and they can do whatever they want. So we do try to have some incentives, drive some of this new technology. For the non-legal staff, like the legal assistants, we require them to earn 10 learning credits a year. So that's 10 hours of training. So they will come to the training for sure, because that's going to affect their annual evaluations. And the incentive to actually use the technology comes in when they start calling the help desk, weekly, and they still can't do this specific task. They can't use this software, and somebody keeps having to do it for them. Well, I watch those, we gather that data and we look at what users are struggling with, what technology, where are training gaps and things like that. And so it does show if they are or are not using that technology, and that also comes in on their year-end evaluations and can affect their merit increases. So for our non-legal staff, the incentives are there. For timekeepers, it's a little trickier. We cannot do that to our attorneys. And so again, that's where I say I feel like a salesperson. I've really got to have a good pitch, and I've got to give them that pitch wherever they are and whenever I can get to them. So, if they don't want to come to training, sometimes it's as much as they'll call and say, I'm trying to do this thing and it's not working. And I'll say, you want me to come to your office real quick? And I take advantage of that 10 or 15 minutes in their office one-on-one. And I show them, look, if you just use this piece, look how much time that's going to save you. I just get it to them wherever I can. I've asked to come and speak at their weekly or monthly department meetings and just demo something, just 10, 15-minute demo. And I do something quick, easy, and something that benefits them, because that's what they're looking for. What is in it for me, and how is this going to help me as an attorney? So those are really important key pieces as well. We record all of our webinar training. Attorneys really, especially after COVID, they really like webinars now. They want to stay in their office. They want to, or they're working remotely. They keep their Outlook on one screen. They only maybe listen with half an ear to your training, but hey, at least they're there and they've heard it. The key for me is, if they never see it, they're not going to use it. And that's the thing. That's probably our biggest challenge of user adoption, is getting it out there so they know it exists. And we've definitely made mistakes along the way. An example of one of our mistakes is we bought this new firm template package, letter, memo, fax, cover sheet, and all the bells and whistles, pretty big template package. Timing is really important when you have rollouts as well. And unfortunately, this one we rolled out between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's definitely not a good time to roll out new technology. We also only targeted our legal administrative assistants, because they are the ones who mostly do this kind of work. So the attorneys really didn't know anything about it even. And one of the main key features of this was our new letterhead. We did not get any user input. We had I think our word processing department might have looked at it. My colleague, Cindy Lowe, who is also a trainer here at Porter Wright, we both looked at a couple of different packages. We made the decision. We really didn't go to leadership. We were just going under the direction of our IT director at the time, and so we just did it. And the training class itself was, I think we did a 3-hour class. We did take a break in the middle, but we showed them every single feature of this software all at once. And we probably lost them in the first 20, 30 minutes. And what happened after that is that they all went back to their desks and they continued to create letterhead the way they always did. And that's usually open an old letter, save as new, change it for the new stuff, and off they go. We did eventually correct that. I would like to say today we have at least 80% adoption. Some of them, we're never going to change them, and then, you just go on. Some successes of software rollout or new tech rollout, just real quick, the video meetings and the, IM or chat technology that all of us today are using. Back before the pandemic, we had the IM chat feature, and it shows your availability, your click to call. I mean, it's all on the computer. It's really easy to use, and people were like, I'm not using that, and some of them would just completely exit out of it. They were not using it. Well, then the pandemic came, and it became the key to communication for the whole firm. Everybody's working from home. So, are you going to keep calling people, or you're sending emails, and these email threads are just ridiculous, and it's filling your inbox up with all that noise. And so, while it was kind of an easy sell, the thing about that was it was necessary and it was useful. And so post-pandemic, here we are, everybody uses it, loves it. People were like, why didn't we do this a long time ago? And I just want to say, you tell me why. We had it, they just didn't want to use it. So, I guess the key thing to take away here is that, the technology has to have some kind of benefit for the end user, or they're not going to use it. So that's everything I have. Hopefully I stayed in like the 10-minute.
You're awesome, Lori. Thank you. I mean, we'll come back to a few of the things you said, and I took notes. But I think you sort of mentioned, timing and timing of foreseen events and unforeseen events, and some of the things that are out of our control. And I think we've got innumerable stories of how the pandemic actually supported a lot of what we do, and the reasons why. So it's interesting. Those tools were always there, and now there's a purpose to using them. So thank you for that share. I appreciate it. Brad, how you doing?
I'm here.
Here.
It looks like I'm stable now.
Half the battle's showing up, right? Fantastic. Well, if you don't mind, I've got notes on your stories, but why don't you just have a go and share a little bit of your world, please?
Sure. So, we have a lot of the same challenges that Lori mentioned. Ours have a little bit of different flavor because we don't have buy-in from leadership on training in general. Training for us is more of a response to the overhead that gets put on the help desk with people not knowing how to use the systems, or even if we have certain systems. So our training program is 100% optional. I've developed it anyway over the years, and we actually have a person in place to coordinate all the training, which helps tremendously. But it's optional. So the people who are interested in training and interested in upskilling always show up, and everyone else doesn't. And in a nutshell, what that does is it creates a class of people who are competent. They can do everything that needs to be done, and everybody dumps their workload on them because nobody else can get it done. And that that is not great, because those people are overwhelmed. It hurts their morale, and it makes the whole organization very, very inefficient. So what we have to do to fight that is basically the onus comes right back to help desk and systems administration. We spend a lot of time what I call nudging. Training, like Lori was saying, doesn't work if it's one and done. People don't absorb it, people don't remember it, and so it has to be an iterative, constantly delivered effort. And we take our teachable moments in the help desk. People will come in, send in tickets and say, hey, how do I do this? Or, you know, I'm trying to do this and it's not working. And we can say, well, it's not working because you're not using it right. We don't use those words, right? We say, oh, yeah, there's a better way to do this. It's going to help you. It's going to be more efficient and quicker and less of a headache. And we take those teachable moments, those opportunities to deliver the training that the people aren't absorbing because they're not taking the time to actually go to training. When it comes time to, say, implement a system or a service that we don't have, we have to very much do a backdoor operation where we shop it around to attorneys that we know we can communicate with, people who are a little bit interested in learning new things and can give us solid feedback, and not the feedback is more about the system or the problems instead of their problems learning it. So you have to have a group of attorneys and staff people that you trust to communicate with. You kind of do some demos with them, shop it out to them, get some feedback so that you can build a demo package that will be receptive to the general public, meaning attorneys, because they're the ones that make all the decisions. So that's what we do, is we have our trusted group. Whatever we need to get done, we throw it by them, get some feedback. We craft the message for the general attorney public. Then we start giving demonstrations to like Lori was saying, a committee or a review committee or a user group. And the idea is we are trying to sell it to them so they will sell it to leadership. And so we do that. We usually bring in a couple of different vendors to give them the Goldilocks scenario. Like, here's a problem we have. Here's some solutions. This solution's not good enough. This solution's too good. Here's the right solution. This is the one you're supposed to pick. We get them sold on that, and then they go back and they talk amongst themselves in their areas, and then we do it with another group. And you just got to keep, like trickling water, cutting through the rock. You just have to keep pushing it, and then eventually some of them will use it and they'll realize, oh, this is a benefit, and they'll start pushing it for you. And then all of a sudden leadership is like, oh, hey, let's do this. Let's spend the money. We'll sign everybody up and do this. So there's ways to get around it. It takes longer. I would say that one of the silver linings is that doing the grassroots method like that means you have very little pushback once the system's in place, is because it was brought in. It wasn't imposed from the top down. And we've had quite a bit of success with that. That is probably our biggest pain point with what we do. It would be very, very helpful if we had at least a core set of skills that the leadership says everybody has to know this. It would make things a lot more efficient. But in lieu of that, we just have to pick up the slack.
Thank you, Brad. Now, for everyone on this call who may or may not know, I know Brad's firm pretty intimately because they are about a Frisbee throw away from me. And so I got to, as we were sort of doing the Savvy Dance, I got to know Brad and his firm really well. And what's amazing, and I think this is a question for all of our panelists, is how much of the technology is driven by vendors and changes in the technology itself, and how much of it is driven by clients and client needs. So we'll just sort of bank that question for later. But Brad, in your world, there's certainly some things that have come to the table based on clients' needs and practice group response to certain constraints that they have within those within that clientele.
That's a great question, and that distinction covers more than just more than just training. In fact, it has a huge impact on our security posture. Most of the time, new systems, productivity type systems, some security systems, they come from me. I'm the one out there looking, seeing what's out there, and I bring it back and shop around like I was talking about before. Occasionally, a client will ask for a productivity system, like Smartsheets. We just did that recently. It's a great example. One of our bigger clients, we do hundreds of matters with them, usually 10, 15 at a time. And they're like, we're having trouble keeping track of what you guys are doing. Let's use Smartsheets. And I was like, yes, we are going to use Smartsheets. Trying to get the attorneys to use a project management tool is, herding cats all over again. So it was a great opportunity. I'm like, hey, we're going to use Smartsheets because your client told you to. And the rollout was great. I mean, everyone was motivated. We signed them up for the enterprise account. We did the training. Everybody attended because they didn't want to look stupid in front of their client. So it was a great opportunity. And those are few and far between. But when they happen, you got to jump on them because that is a surefire win. What usually happens is your cybersecurity insurer or your bigger clients who have a cybersecurity insurer come to you and say, hey, if you want to do business with us, you have to have all this stuff in place. And it usually is just around security features, but sometimes it's procedures and protocols, and sometimes it's certain kinds of software. And those are golden opportunities also, because no one can say no. I mean, if you get pushback, you can say, well, go find another insurance carrier, right? And then come talk to me. So you've got to look out for those opportunities and jump on them with both feet whenever they happen.
Nice. Well done. Thank you, Brad. Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to dig into all that a little more. But at this moment, I want to give my friend Dan a chance to espouse on Dan's worldliness and ups and downs, pros and cons, and what's on your plate, and what can you share?
I can share nothing. Sorry. So it's interesting. I mean, everybody, I think we all have the same, same challenges. One of the things that's unique to us, I mean, maybe anyways, we don't have a dedicated training team. So, as projects come up, we just did a major migration that affected everybody in the firm, and it was about 9 months in length. And so we took a different approach. I tried to manage this as training. So we involved training at day one. So day one was really we did a proof of concept, we did a bake off, and we had the trainers all engaged. So we were talking about that, the pros and cons of the products. And we also had, as Lori was talking about, bringing in, just the attorneys, and we build our focus groups, and really, my job has been just present the solution. This is the pricing scenario. This is the product. These are the pros and the cons. You saw everything. What do you feel? And then we put it out to them for the answers, right? So we'll put like 30 or 40 people in a focus group and let them provide the answers back to us. Now, there may be some things behind the scenes they don't get to be involved in, but and so they're getting trained a little bit right out of the gate, right? So they're involved. They have a lot of say into things like, do we need? What about this or what about that? And we're the products are being learned as we begin this whole process. Secondarily, as we started going through, we started putting advertisements out. We started marketing. So marketing was a big deal for us because our attorneys are just like everybody else's. Time is money, right? So anything that's more than a couple of minutes long is a couple of minutes too long. So we had to figure out how do we get in front of them, because most people, we've been back to the office 100% since June of 2021. So pretty early adopters. They come back to the office, but your attorneys, they come and go as they please. So there's still the challenge. So we decided early on, once we made our decision, that we're going to go with we're going to train subject matter experts. So we're going to take legal assistants, since some of them have 8 or 9 attorneys, or maybe even a couple more, especially after COVID. We're going to train them a little bit more. We're going to put them through 2-hour training block, and we built the training courses over months. And we used several of them that we felt were that would provide valuable information, and had them, work with the provider to develop the training for everybody else as well. So these are the key points. These are what we need to attack. They know the attorneys. We pretend we know them. We talk to them all the time. We're out there, me, my team, but we don't know them as intimately as their legal assistants do. So anyways, we've never done any of this stuff before. So this approach, everything was, okay, here, this is what you recommend. We'll just go and do it. So we'd made this change. The legal assistants, they didn't like it, but they started to enjoy it once they had a stake in it. When they had blood in the game, they provided them no mechanism after the fact to complain, right? Yeah, 6 months of complaining, or the ability to voice opinion, and we did, and then some of them did, and we altered courses, and we changed some policy around the product and how we were implementing it, and because of the way they use it. So it helped out a lot. We did both video in person and then daily. So we did video training for the attorneys, which was an hour long, and it was an hour and a half for regular users, and it was 2 hours for the the SME types. And the hour, we had 2 weeks of 3 times a day for the attorneys to go through training. So we provided a bunch of mechanisms. What we did start to do is as well as a concierge service. So it's sort of like the Genius Bar at Apple. Just pop in every day at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. And then we did another one at 3. We just had somebody manning a Zoom, conference call, and they sit in the lobby, pull you in, and we geared all that towards training. So if you wanted to know if the product is going to do this or that, and we weren't live yet, by the way, you had that ability. So we provided another mechanism for training. As everybody said, we did a lot of documentation. We continued to do advertisements, and we developed tech tips every week of this is coming. This is you've been talking about integration to time billing, whatever it may be. This is how you're going to be able to do it. These are the functions. And so, we tried to get everybody excited. We did the same thing. I would sit and be part of the managing, the partner meetings, the monthly partner meetings. If we had, I would have a call, like once a month or something with some of the legal assistants. I talked to them. So at every corner, it was all about communication. We needed to open up the channels. And to be quite honest, it really helped out a lot. When we came down to the conversion, we were very thankful. We had no issues with data. All the data moved over, and that was because we spent a lot of time understanding what the data was and how we needed it. So nothing to do with training, but it helped not having any errors. We did have to delay because we had a bunch of office moves, so we delayed the transition to the new product. But then on cut day, we had training for 2 weeks afterwards. So we had live floor support. We had 4 people that were at every floor in all the quadrants. So we broke it all up. So you maybe had 10 people or 15 offices, whatever it may be, and your responsibility was to walk around those 15 offices all day long. So and then we utilized. We had the ability. I was a little skeptical, but I adopted an attorney. She was a partner that had a tremendous amount of passion for this product and had a tremendous amount of passion for success. and her being a partner, and I thought would be very beneficial. So she was talking to the partners at different level, at, you know, from her perspective, how important it was to go to training, how important it was to use this product. It's great. It's going to save you time and effort. And she was actually walking around and adopted associates to be her counterparts as well, to help support her. And that proved to be very successful. Again, I was a little skeptical. I didn't, partner to a partner. I'm like, I don't know if you're really going to be able to devote the time, but she did. And she got like 8 other people associated with this. So we had a lot of floor support and a lot of feet in the ground, so to speak. So it helped us out a lot. Like I said, when we went live, I was nervous because, this is affecting the entire firm. And, we were a little skeptical of what may or may not happen because this is all new, the way we approached our training. And we had a lot of questions, but most of the questions were how-to. There weren't a lot of issues. And most of the how-tos we didn't address yet. So we decided to take a phased approach. And instead of throwing, I'll tell you what we did. So we moved from I managed the net documents. So instead of throwing everything with net documents out of the window day one, we decided to phase. This is what we use today and I manage. So we'll open this up. Day 2 or week 2, week 3, we opened up some other of Pandora's boxes and let them play around. And we provided more mechanisms for them to adapt to their workplace. That proved to be very beneficial. So the long and short of it is we took a good bit of time up front to figure out what did we do wrong in the past. We didn't have great adoption. We did, major upgrades to, a whole bunch of different services, financial and, desktops, and just the adoption rate was poor. Even when we upgraded iManage, it just wasn't good. So the feedback has always been the time, like Lori was mentioning earlier, spending the time, visiting with the attorneys and everybody else, but we didn't have the bandwidth to do that. So that was part of the problem, or the funding. So we had to figure something else out. So we were thankful. We had positive feedback. We also addressed this with the focus group to make sure that they were on board for what we were trying to do and how we were going to do it. So we had support from all angles. Our managing partner supported us. And to be honest, at the end of the day, everything was successful. I'm still employed, so I think we did okay. And this was the smoothest project that I've ever worked on. Not just here, but I think ever in general. So it really worked out very successfully, and I think it's a great model if you have the staff and the people that are willing to participate. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Dan. So, I picked up on a few themes that I kind of want to dig into a little bit, and I'm watching the screen over here, and there's a few comments or questions that we can address. But the three of you are so interesting and unique because you're coming at this with your firm, and you either have immense leadership from the top or like zero in terms of training and adoption. And I think everybody who's here on the webinar, clearly is somewhere in between that. And I think the balancing act of how do you get things done is really interesting. Years ago, I was on the road speaking, and at the time, 15, 16, 17, my speech was on lean training and how law firms are 5 to 7 years behind the rest of the business world in terms of technology. And I think the reality today is that's not true anymore. I think law firms are now at the forefront of technology and even adoption. When you've got companies like, Laterra, NetDocs, all these companies are investing, enormous amounts of money and resources to developing products that are truly world class. So I think there's that. But one of the questions is, all right, so you get through the initial rollout and the initial migration and rollout, and you've got leadership. And Dan, I love your idea of you adopting attorney partner, and they were the cheerleader who then sub-adopted others and sort of spread the word. And Lori, you've got that. Brad, a lot of it is coming for you was sort of on the client forcing side, and so it's a little bit different of a mechanism. But I think the question that's being asked is, you do the rollout, and 3, 6, 12 months later, what do you do, right? People aren't getting it. They're going back into their old bad habits. They still have questions. They're still hammering the help desk. What sort of, and I guess we'll start with Lori, what sort of support, or how do you shape the culture of the employees so that they are more independent and asking fewer questions because they understand the technology?
So what we've done here is, I think Dan just mentioned this, tech tips. We do e-tips, weekly e-tips. And when we see, we use the help desk statistics a lot. When we see a bunch of tickets coming in, we used WebEx for our video tool, not Zoom, much to the dismay of a lot of attorneys, right? So, and we're getting questions over and over again on scheduling. They can't figure out how to schedule meetings through Outlook. So we did a whole week of e-tips. It was WebEx week for e-tips. And again, it's just short, quick, here's how you do it. Here's how you do it in Outlook. Here's how you do it with the web page. And that it's kind of like an immediate answer to your question that you didn't ask but wanted to. With things like, for instance, with our legal administrative assistants and using, Word, styles and numbering and automatic generated tables of contents and the tables of authorities for those litigation documents, those kinds of skills, we regularly rerun the training on that. We're very fortunate here at Porter Wright to have a dedicated training team, and that we have a dedicated training room here in the Columbus office. When we travel, we take a traveling training room with us, and we have the ability to set up hands-on training in all the offices. And our end users seem to really appreciate getting training. We've had new people come on board and say, oh my God, I've never had this kind of training before. So we feel very fortunate to be able to offer that. And sometimes it seems repetitive, like we're doing it over and over again, but if they don't use the skill regularly, it is difficult to keep that skill up. So we're actually in the process of, reevaluating our onboarding training, not just for staff, but for our legal staff as well. And, we're continually trying to change and learn and grow as the technology does the same. Dan mentioned the document management system change. We changed from one to another, and that rollout was fairly successful. They worked a lot with the end user community and the different practice groups building the back end of that document management system prior to rolling it out. So the attorneys, a lot of attorneys were involved, and they already had that back end knowledge of what this was going to look like. And surprisingly enough, that rollout went very well. We did do hands-on training for the whole firm, and some of the attorneys, they just sat there and watched, and that's okay. Some of them did, play along, but that was a really well thought, well planned out transition. And I think that's probably key as well, not rushed, not hurry up, let's do this kind of thing. So.
And Lori, this question from Amy. Do you think that the repetitive nature of your training helps create better retention for the people who attend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They feel supported. They know what they're doing. They know where that there's support that they can get as needed. Like they need it right now. They know they can get it. They can get it from a person. They can get it from our LMS. They can get it from past e-tips. they know that the support is out there, and I think that really makes them feel a lot more comfortable in their roles, whether it's the legal administrative assistants or our associates or even our partners.
Nice, thank you. Lori, quick reminder, how many trainers on your staff? 2 trainers for how many total people?
370.
All right, thank you. All right, this one from Diane. Diane calling in, longtime listener, first time caller. For the, I'm gonna direct this one to Brad. For the people who don't attend training, right? We've got the people who attend training, they get trained, they understand it, X% of what they could probably do. What do you do with the folks who don't even go the first time?
That is a great question, Doug.
And Diane.
So we've adopted a couple of different methods to reach out to those folks and get them some level of training. They're not self-serve people. They don't even like being spoon-fed, right? So one of the things that I did early on when I realized what the problem I had, and I had to deal with it myself, as I did get approval to add several $1,000s to my budget for training incentives. So what we would do, and this works mostly with staff, the attorneys don't care so much because they already make a ton of money. But the staff were pretty receptive to it. And so the folks that didn't come because they're just too busy or didn't think it was important, a lot of those folks did come. We would say, hey, come to this training, and whoever showed up got a $5 Starbucks card or a $25 grocery card or something like that. And after the first time we did that, we didn't tell anybody we were going to do that, and everyone who showed up got money. Ooh, the second one we did, it was a full room for sure. But I mean, that enhances your delivery. There's still folks who want nothing to do with it. They don't care, and they'll never show up. Those folks, really the only way we can reach them is when they have something in their lives that's not working, some pain point that they have. And that's where we bring in the help desk. So like Lori, we keep help desk metrics. We keep training metrics on people. That's part of the training program that I developed is, you keep track of who's having problems, and those issues are referred from the help desk to the trainer. And you keep track what training that person has had and how many times they're asking the same question over and over again. For us, because it's all optional, we really just have to bide our time, right? So we keep all those metrics. We know what's going on. So when something happens, like a staff person calls up and says, oh my God, I've formatted this Word document, and now it's just not working, and it's taking so much time, and I can't bill any more time, right? So they're in distress. They have a lot of pain going on. So you take that moment and you can say, hey, so-and-so, here's a guide on how to do what you're doing. If you want someone to walk you through it, Stella, the trainer, can walk you through it. Here's some recorded webinars that we did, 10 times over the past 6 months. If you want to log into our LMS, which by the way, we have an LMS. So you kind of lay it on them. And in that moment, they're receptive because they're asking for help. And the returns on all that effort are marginal for those people because they're only willing to listen in that moment, but that is the only moment you're going to get. There's different ways to reach all different kinds of people who have different levels of interest. One of the things we experienced during the pandemic is our proficiencies took a nosedive because I didn't even realize how much this was happening, but what we were relying on was peer-to-peer training before that. everyone was in the office. The person next to you taught you how to do whatever it was you were doing. And we did not realize to the extent that we were operating like that. And then when everybody went home and we got tons of new hires that never even met anybody, they didn't know how to do anything, and they never got any better because there wasn't anybody sitting right next to them training them. And that was when we were like, okay, we have to have a well-defined training program that captures all these metrics I was talking about, keeps track of what people have done, because we could not really rely on peer-to-peer training. And I got to say that, like, those metrics are training. You cannot measure your success, the effectiveness of what you're doing, without retaining and keeping metrics on everybody. Whether you're, you have the authority to make them do whatever they need to do or not, you still have to measure what you're doing. And that was a kind of a wake-up call for us. I thought we were doing great, right? I thought, oh, this is training. It's the easiest thing in the world. And then the pandemic hit, and like, oh my God, we're not doing anything.
I think what you're, I love it. I think, I think all of us on this call sort of understand at a gut level that data and information is power. Having the flexibility or having the willpower to wait, to have that information and wait for the flashpoint. I think that's, when the bow breaks, like that's what you're calling it, the flashpoint, having that information so that when there is that flashpoint and that one unique moment to get that person, and then you've got this arsenal of information surrounding that, can be very, very useful. And what is it, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Right. And Doug, it does work with partners too. So those moments are less frequent, but every once in a while you'll have a conversation, usually a hallway conversation, and you have that information. You can say, oh, by the way, that problem you're talking to me right now, you can lay out exactly how much better it could have been for that partner. It's not just staff.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to direct the next one to, of course, to everybody, but also specifically to Dan. So we've got a question from John about the phased adaptation approach. And I think everyone sort of covered salesmanship, cheerleading, who do you get the people to be the salespeople internally so that everybody else jumps on board. But how do you determine what resources are best and needed at the time to reduce calls and answer questions for people who want to adopt those new products? How do you handle the communication in terms of what is the right thing to adopt? And then once you've decided on it, how do you phase in that approach?
So that's a great question. So it sounds like a loaded question, because I'm not sure. I think it depended upon the culture at your firm or your organization, and sometimes it's the challenge is we're trying to change the culture as well. So for instance, I already said that we made I made the decision to change how we effectively did training. And we've done it for years the same way, and it just didn't work. So the reason I decided to change, and I identified what to do and how to do it, is because when we got into these focus groups, I started realizing, because we had a little bit of everybody in them, right? It wasn't all attorneys. There were some, associates, some partners, some equity partners, some staff, and the only thing we didn't have was IT people. So, but what I did notice was a lot of the legal assistants started taking ownership. They were the ones asking questions. And it became very clear at that point that they were the leaders of this. They were the ones that are going to be the storefront. They're going to be the most important, right? And the other side is I had to identify and figure out who is the best salesman. I mean, of all these people at the firm, who are the ones that people look up to that I have a relationship with that will, you know, I say this in jest, but that owe me something. You know, that we've kind of went out of our way and helped people, and they understand and they want to help us be successful. So I had to identify that. So it's a lot of, I say psychology. It's just understanding, and you got to be able to read people. But we know all of our staff. We know all of our attorneys really, really well. We just got to make them feel part of the success instead of just, you know, being another number. And a lot of things that we did when we had meetings and trying to figure things out, you know, to get attorneys to come in. We were talking about earlier, it kind of stayed away, but we just did it around lunchtime or brought free food because attorneys do make a ton of money, but they like their free food. And they'd come into our room, and there was always we'd have it catered or whatever to what they like. So, and they didn't, they may not have stayed the whole time, they may not have paid attention, but they were there. And, so I think that's the key. That was the key for us, is identifying, you know, who is going to be that help with the change, be that agent for change, because it's really important, and they got to have respect within the firm. So that helped out tremendously. And you know, me, I'm a pretty talkative person. I go around and I try to sell everything, and it helped out a lot. We took time to do it. We didn't just rush into it. So
y'all are fantastic and phenomenal, and I appreciate it. Part of my job is to keep us on schedule, so I'm going to do that. I feel like, looking at the questions and the conversation and my notes, that we could keep this going for another few hours, or maybe just make a ALA or an ILTA session out of it. Wink, wink, Christine. But for now, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate all of your sincerity and your honesty in talking about this, because I think you're up sometimes against headwinds, and understanding how to navigate the headwinds and get things done is such a critical and difficult skill set, and the three of you have certainly done it and continue to do it. So I for one appreciate this very much. For the rest of you who've asked questions, we will respond to those afterwards. I'm going to tee up our topic for Q3 sometime in Q3. We're going to do another one of these Savvy Influencer panels, and the topic will be something along the lines of Chat GPT, but quote, the fast approaching crisis or salvation, the urgency of training in the AI enabled legal industry. So we're still, of course,
interesting,
working on what that will look like, but I think man, there's a lot there, and there's a lot we can do with it now, and it's either scary or scary. So I think there's a lot to understand. Like, well, jobs and replace people, or just like write stuff. Like, it's amazing. So we're gonna dive into it deeper, and sometime in Q3 we're gonna host this again, and everyone's invited to the party. But for now, I really want to thank you, Lori and Brad and Dan, for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the opportunity.